Maybe we are going up. Here we are live. Guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. My name is Jay Angel, and I'm going to be your host for this evening. Let's Talk Fishing is brought to you. Let's turn that music on. Let's Talk Fishing is brought to you by Grant Rods. Tonight, I have a very special guest, a lady who has been on the podcast several times. She's a very good friend of the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. None other than Violet Talley from Northern Illinois. How are you doing tonight, Violet?
Good. I'm good. Busy as usual. I mean, you know how it is. It's the height of, we're getting into the summer, so it's getting a little busy. Weather's getting warmer, really warm actually. So, it's getting busy.
Yeah, I know about warm weather living down here.
Mm-hmm.
Heat indices of 118 degrees today. Yikes. That's horrible. It's horrible. So how have you been doing with your tournament season, Violet?
Spring did very well. I'm a strong spring fisherman. I'm pretty good with the pre-spawn and in the spawn. Post-spawn, we're kind of in that post-spawn funk. It's just starting to get out of it. We're getting into the summer pattern. So the post-spawn is always a difficult time for me because, a lot of those fish, once they leave the spawning flats and spawning beds, it gets tough because they don't want to eat. They just want to, it's like 2 or 3 week span where they, take time to recuperate. They go a little deeper, but they're not quite offshore. They're not quite deep. But our spawn out here actually has been happening in waves because of the weather. You know how it got really, really warm really early on. Fish got on beds, or they started with beds, and then all of a sudden the temperature dropped again, and so the fish came off the beds, and then they're back on the beds, and they're back off, and then our water level got drained down a little bit, so that brings them off and on. So it's been kind of sporadic, and so the post spawn is more like it's been like a 1 month cycle. There were still fish on beds with bluegill on beds, so it's kind of interesting. And so, one of the lakes that I fished, Geneva, usually the smallmouth spawn first, then you have the largemouth, and then you'll have the bluegill. But we still had smallmouth spawning when the bluegill were spawning. So it's been in waves. So it's been a little bit tougher post spawn, but we're starting to get into that summer pattern. So starting to normalize a little bit.
One of the things I would do when I lived in Illinois is after the dog days of sun on the lakes, I would go to the rivers, like the Fox River. That I know you fish there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like the smallmouth bass were always willing to bite. I mean, I didn't catch 4-pounders in the rock or the Fox. I caught large amounts of fish there. And guys, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties here. I do apologize about this. This happens. Boy, are you still there, Violet?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, you said you kind of take to the rivers, but you don't catch a lot of fish, right?
Yeah, small ones. I didn't know if you were going to be able to hear that because my Wi-Fi was deciding if it was going to work or not. But anyways, I didn't call you to talk about Wi-Fi. What do you feel? Do you like fishing the rivers in the dog days of summer as opposed to the lakes?
I fish the Fox Chain Lake system, which is part of the Fox River system. And there are many times we'll fish the chain, and I'll actually, if it gets a little tough on the actual chain, I'll actually go down the river. Sometimes I'll even lock through because we're allowed to go south all the way down to the Algonquin Dam, which is a pretty far stretch. I mean, but the problem is you run the clock if you do that. So, it's a 45-minute run down there with all the idling zones, and then you got to go through the locks. And, on a weekend, those locks, they're open 8 a.m. to midnight. So, and I mean, I think they can fit about eight boats in there, and sometimes you're waiting an hour or so, and then you got to realize you got to still go fish. You got to come back. You got to go back another 45 minutes. But sometimes those fish they're just down on the river because there's a current. The water's a little deeper. It does fluctuate on the river a bit, but they've been holding the water upriver. Downriver, it's tough right now because the water level is unusually low. We're also going through a drought period. We had some rain yesterday, but we need like a week long worth of all day rain to kind of get to any type of a normal level. I think we're about 2 feet low right now. And that's a huge difference. I mean, your reservoir lakes, they go many feet, they can go up and down all the time, but we're natural lake.
Yes.
And so you don't want that fluctuation. When that water starts to dip, those fish go lockjaw and they start moving. They go into areas that, you're not used to seeing. Channels start to get, too shallow to get into. Although, sometimes some of those channels, in the back might be a little bit deeper and you might have some resident fish back there, but, just trying to get in with your boat. I mean, sometimes you got 6 inches of play and not even that, and try to get out, so, so it can be difficult. But the rivers, I will find myself going down there during the dog days of summer. The Chain's a unique body of water, so you always find a fish somewhere, but then it's like you're playing with the clock. You only got 8 hours, which seems like a lot, but it's not to a tournament fisherman when you have how many 10 plus lakes to go through, figure out where they're at, what the current is, the wind, the temperature, the water level. So the river tends to be a little bit more constant, but they don't always bite. I mean, I had a river tournament yesterday, and we had a real tough time finding them, but it was a matter of timing and location, but the water level, the temperature dropped about 3, 4, 5 degrees in some places. So it was a little tougher bite. I did get some of a topwater bite, but they were all, 13 inches, 13 and a half, 13 and 7/8. You don't get that 14-inch fish. So in finding the bigger ones becomes a little harder. Sometimes it just becomes a matter of luck at that point. But, it is what it is. That's fishing.
We have a question from the audience. It's Cajun Rob, who's a very good friend of the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. He says, your favorite technique in the summer for smallmouth?
For smallmouth, a lot of times I'm going to go ahead and flip like rock points. So a lot of points that come out in the river, they're loaded up with rock that have a lot of gravel. I mean, a lot of these there's a lot of residential homes on the river, and some of them will put boulders or rock along their shoreline. And the key is if that rock or gravel goes down far enough under the water, it's a nice steep incline, at least 3 feet or more. You're going to have smallmouth cruising through there. You can throw a Ned rig, but a lot of times I've been throwing a Missile Ike's flip out, like a mini flip out jig, and it's been phenomenal. They have something called Purple Passion, which has been big lately. California Love, which is like a green pumpkin and black. That's been doing really well. And I'll usually tip it with some sort of a craw or like a baby D-bomb on the river especially, or even on the chain. I'll find seawalls. Seawalls are excellent for smallmouth, especially on like hard bottom lakes. We have a lake called Lake Bluff, Petite Lake.
How deep of water would that seawall have to?
Mm-hmm. And those lakes have a harder rock bottom, which the smallmouth like to do. They like to travel, so they go back and forth a lot. So you can literally sit in one spot and pull them out of an area. Just let them kind of cycle through, and they're constantly moving.
Okay, we have another question from a Facebook user. I don't know who it is, but it just says Facebook user. He says, can we get more D-bombs at Triangle?
Oh, it's hilarious because I was just there today. And I was asking Mr. Greg Dixon, owner of Triangle Sports, just asking about his missile. How are they selling? How are they doing? He goes, well, to be honest, they're a fantastic product. We love them. They're not selling as hot as I thought they would. I said, well, what's really popular is the D-bomb, all over the country. I've spoken to, a lot of pro fishermen, both on the bigger, bigger circuits and smaller circuits, regional circuits, BFLs, Bass Opens. The D-bomb is the winner. It is preferred over a lot of those flipping baits. Also to put them on as a jig trailer. So the D-bomb's an amazing, and they got a lot of great colors now. They also sell them in bulk packs. I like that because the bulk packs come in they have like a black and red flake. They'll have the green pumpkin. They'll have, the typical colors in bulk packs, and you save a lot of money buying on bulk packs from their website. So, but yeah, if I will tell Greg that somebody asked, because I was just telling them today, just went there today to load up on my trip that I got coming up next week. I'm doing Mississippi River lacrosse.
Nice. In the summer when the water gets really, really hot, I like to use the baby D-bombs. Just to downsize because the fish aren't being as heavily, particularly down here where the water temperature is over 90 degrees plus. They just get lethargic and just get, like missiles. Geez, I don't even know the name of it, but they have, that was Spot Monkey.
Oh,
we know him.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I'll talk to Greg about it Wednesday. I won a Wednesday night a couple of weeks ago on the D bomb. Good
Oh,
job,
nice.
good job. So
Yeah, that's all. The D bomb has been, like I said, all the way across the board. A lot of the elites and pros are really, really looking at the D bomb. But I'm surprised how many people don't know about Missile, being owned by John Cruz, who's an Abass elite, and he's won several of them. And I mean, and it's, to be honest, Missile doesn't do a lot of big advertising. They don't really need to. They got a lot of elites and a lot of pros using their product, and they've been introducing a lot of new stuff. They did a partnership with RoboWorm, so they're now they have the magic, what they call the magic worm, and then they have now the mini magic worm, which you cannot get anywhere except Missile Baits, and they have their own exclusive colors, which is really nice. But they got a lot of different products. I mean, they also have some terminal tackle. They're slowly building their inventory, but their plastics are awesome, and they're very durable, they're very flexible, but they're very durable, which I really like. It's not like you're going to put one on and it, one fish it rips off or tears apart. I mean, I use them quite a bit, and they got some unique stuff, which I really like. But the D-Bomb is hands down. There's it for something about it those fish love.
You want to talk about unique stuff.
What did you get now?
I've said it a million times, but this.
Oh, the 48.
The 48
I love
just, look at this thing. This is just unique.
Yep. It has a different wobble on the way down because it's fat on both ends.
Look at that. They broke the mold.
I'm trying to see what else. Yeah. But they do great. The 48's not as popular. I don't know if Greg Dixon at Triangle's got any though. I don't think I remember seeing
and
him.
Also, congratulations to Spot Monkey on your victory. I know I already said that, but man, that's just awesome. And that you got it on a D-bomb. Now, what is the name of the small jig that Missile target?
For Missile, so it's the Ike's. The one that I like to use, the Ike's Mini Flip, because it's the 3/8 ounce. The Ike's Mini Flip has a smaller shank. It's got a smaller hook. It's a robust hook, but it's a smaller hook. Then he's got the flip out, which it's the same size jig, but it's got a much more stout, much bigger hook. So it depends on what you're doing. If you're gonna get some bigger ones, or you're really yanking them, you're gonna probably want to use a bigger, stouter hook. Since on the river or whatnot, or on the chain where it's, like I said, the dog days of summer, I'm going to want to get that profile down a little bit smaller, but I want it to be as versatile. So, and they got a nice weed guard on them. They got a nice bullet shaped head on it. So it goes in and out of rock and grass a little bit better, but it's just that nice compact. It's not the micro jig, because they do have a micro jig. It's the really tiny one. I like that mini flip out. So it's just the right size. And I can't tell you how many I've gone through. I just put in another order. I think I ordered 100 jigs one time, and then I had to put in another order because certain colors were doing. Like I said, the Purple Passion's been doing really well for me in California Love, just because they're simple colors. But they're coming out with new colors all the time. So, but yeah, just a great versatile jig, and it holds up to everything. Never had an issue with it whatsoever.
Man, now when you're throwing these smaller jigs with smaller profile plastics, you have to have a very sensitive rod, particularly in the river, where sometimes the fish try a little 12-inch smallmouth will take the rod right out of your hand, but other times they're just gonna.
Yep.
What do you use to have that?
Yeah, it's been but I'll be honest with you. So I started with the Grant Slam series because it's kind of like the best of both worlds. But I'm going to tell you something right now. I've been throwing, and I've been throwing some a little bit heavier weights. Try to get to the bottom more, punching more a little bit, casting a little bit farther. I've actually starting to fall in love with the Cuda series. So the Cuda series is a little bit more robust series, but just as sensitive. So you don't necessarily. I mean, I know he's got the finesse line. I don't have one of the finesse rods, but even the Cuda, I use a Cuda medium heavy 7 foot or 7'2", and even the Cuda medium heavy is as what a strong backbone as it has with the fast action tip, just as sensitive. I mean, every rod on the Grant line is incredibly sensitive. I have a 7.6 heavy. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 7.6 heavy is just as sensitive as.
This is what I treated myself to.
Yeah. Is that the one with the abalone?
This is the Finesse 40. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is the Grant Finesse anniversary. Yeah, that's the abalone shell stuff. But I've been really impressed with this. This is a 7 foot medium, and I can still flip out there, and well, I mean, still I can flip out there better than any other rods that I've ever had. And it has such hook setting power, just like you were saying. But also,
Mhm.
if I bring that over a stick or over a down here, we don't have rocks, so you know, uh, a cypress knee,
Mhm.
I can feel that. I can feel it going over. I can feel when it, but also I can feel that tick.
Mhm.
Before, when I had rods that weren't quite as good, I would have to
Right.
watch the line. So, if it started going one way or the other, or,
Right.
some, like we said earlier, sometimes the fish tell you they're there, and sometimes they're really, that's why I love fishing.
Right.
You
When
have
in
to
the
be
post, yeah,
focused.
in the post spawn, when we were looking for bluegill beds, a lot of times the water when it's stained or muddy, and you're throwing your jig out there, like I was taking a jig and dragging it through the bluegill beds and going past the bluegill beds towards the boat, and the bass would be just behind the bluegill beds. But you didn't know where those bluegill beds were until all of a sudden you start to feel that jig start to kind of vibrate over the gravel surface of the beds. And having that sensitive rod allows you to be able to know, oh, I'm in a bed right now. As soon as I pass this, I'm going to wait for that bite. And sure enough, we actually got fourth in one of the tournaments because we were going behind those bluegill beds. Unfortunately, we lost the fish that was going to win it for us. But unfortunately, just lose it at the boat, just out of the net's reach, because they were biting very light. So I was dragging it through the bluegill beds. And I said, "Oh, that's a bluegill bed. Any minute now, I'm going to get a bite." And sure enough, that's what would happen. But you needed to know where those bluegill beds were because those bass were nowhere else. And so having that sensitive rod allows you to feel that little bit of change in the gravel surface of the bluegill bed to be able to get to those bass.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know how you feel down here. We don't see spawning bass. We know where that we're on them when
Mm-hmm.
we can feel, you know, your your lure suddenly, or your jig suddenly be taken, 2 feet to the right and spit out.
Right.
But the water is so stained that you just can't see them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times I have to see them on my electronics at that
even though
point.
they're only
But
what,
even then,
18 inches of water.
yeah, even then you need to have that rod so because especially it's funny because we were out on the river yesterday and I was actually fishing on the back of the boat this time, and I'm in the back of the boat and we get out to this rock ledge, and at the bottom of a rock ledge or any type of shoreline where it's a residential, there's always gravel, whether it's a seawall or a rock ledge. They always put gravel at the bottom as a base. And that's another reason why I like seawalls are really, really good, because they got that gravel base, so you don't have a ton of vegetation or anything choking it out. The fish use it as a little highway system. So I always throw my jig up against a seawall or whatever, or like a D-bomb, anything that I'm flipping with, and I let it fall down the wall and get on the gravel, and I'll drag it just enough. And I know when the end of the gravel is, because on that transition is usually when they bite. So I was going down and I was telling my partner, I feel a bite coming on. It should be any second. Sure enough, got a bite right. Missed it, but I got a bite right away. So when that transition happens. So if you can feel that, when to be ready, because you're like, that transition's about to happen because I feel it. So having that sense of right is a huge deal. And I was just talking to one of the guys at Triangle today. He was asking me about the Grant rods, because I have Grant rods on my back window of my truck, and I was driving one day and somebody stopped me, goes, "Hey, how you doing? I'm with Grant rods too, and I love his, and I know him, he's a friend of mine, I know Jim, blah blah." And I had no idea who he was, unfortunately, because he had to drive off. So he's like, "Oh, that was my dad's friend that was waving to you the other day, and we love his rods and blah blah." And I said, "Yeah, they're awesome." He goes, and he was asking me which one's the favorite. And I said, "Which one do I use for, any type of, like more sensitive stuff so I can really feel it?" I said, "Well, to be honest, any one in the line." Like I said, the 7.6 heavy. I mean, I use that to either flip or frog, flip really heavy stuff, or I'll frog. And I'm going to tell you, it's when I flip, you can still feel. I'll drag a little bit. I can't believe it's just as sensitive as that 7-foot Cuda or that 7-foot Pyara. I mean, it's an amazing. It's just how much backbone do you need? How much action do you need? That's what it really comes down to.
I agree with you. And if I had to pick one for a spinning rod, it would be the Grand Cuda.
Yeah.
Those are definitely my favorite spinning rods, and I like this finesse, and that's the only casting rod I have of his.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the stuff I bought have been for redfish, because
Gotcha.
redfish just aren't gonna redfish break lesser rods.
Mhm. I've never broken a rod
How
on
else to say that?
any grant rod.
You can't say that.
I've never broke a grant
Lower
rod
quality
on a fish.
is going to
Yeah,
get
I've never
broken.
broke a grant rod. Yeah. If anything, if one gets broken, it's because I either stepped on it or somebody else stepped on it, or you're taking it through a door or something. But they don't break on fish. So you take care of those rods, they last forever. I mean, and if you do, obviously there's a warranty on them. But when it comes down to actually fighting a fish, you're actually fighting the fish. You're not really going to have an issue. I mean, you have to obviously figure out the rod that you need for it. Like the Pyars, I have a medium light 7-foot Pyar I use for drop shot. It's a little bit more sensitive, but you're not going to break it on a fish. Even if you get a 5, 6, 7 pounder, you're not going to break it. As long as you properly handle it, you're not going to, man it, horse around. Obviously, you don't want to flip a 6-pound fish on a 7-foot medium light anyway. You're going to net it or you're going to lip it. That's just common sense. Because either way, whether you don't break the rod or not, you're going to pull that fish right off that hook. But otherwise, like I said, any of the other rods, I mean, I was just telling him, again, was talking about today, I was saying, the right nice thing about Grant rods, the Pyara, the Cuda, and the Grant Slam series, they are a little bit heftier on the price scale, but I'm going to tell you right now, you can beat the heck out of them all year long. And for years, I've had them in the back of a boat. They've been jumping around. Every time you hit a wave, they're banging against each other. Then you use them, you're in rain and blah, all the whatever, and you just take them, throw them in a corner, throw them in your boat or wherever, pull them back out again. You're not really taking the time. You're in a rush, right? Especially in a tournament situation, you're against the clock. And yes, most of my Grant rods, if not all of them, actually look like brand new. And I beat them neck. I do every Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Then I practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sometimes Saturday. So I fish 6 out of the 7 days. And 2 or 3 of them could be tournament days. And I work, So and then sometimes on the back of the boat, sometimes in the front of my boat. So you're taking rods to the truck, from the truck, in the boat, out of the boat. I can't believe how they can go through all that. I mean, there's no other rod out there. I've had other, manufacturers, and they fall apart. Guides come off, they bend, the coating comes off. I had the coating peel off after a year off several rods. I mean, there's no way. I've never seen even a sliver of the Grant rods ever even try to come off. After you can try to pick at it, nothing will happen. So I'm
handles. I've even had part of the cork come out, not with a Grant rod. With
no, I don't not even at all.
I mean, I don't even remember who made that. But
yeah, but and like I said, I'm not going to say everybody's got a great aspect to their rod, but when it comes to the Grant rods, and one of my preferences, I like the bigger guides because I think for castability, especially when you're doing braid to fluoro or anything like that, a little bit bigger guide, even on the bait caster rods, they don't have the micro guides. I think it's a win because if that line go through it, and some guys can argue with that, it doesn't, but I mean, when you have a knot, or it's just common sense physics, if you have a bigger area for the line to go through, I mean, like the Daiwa T-wing system, it's a bigger area for the line to go through. It opens up when you cast, it just makes sense. Let that line go. So you have less resistance, better castability, and then, he's got a lot of great, he doesn't have the ceramic guides either. The ceramic guides, I can't tell you how many of those I broke. Once the ceramic guide's gone, you're done because that line is going to get frayed or broken at that guide, at that leverage point. So Jim Grant doesn't use any of those. He'll use titanium guides and metal guides that are smooth all the way through. So it's a win-win situation. Like I said, they're a little bit on the pricier side, but you're definitely worth the money because you're not going to have to buy another one, to be honest.
Throw the rod away after the ceramic guide goes. Here's what she's talking. These are not micro guides. And I never understood the micro guides. I'm sure there was a reason for them. Maybe
right. There's probably a reason for it. I don't know exactly.
Knows, but
I have no idea. Okay. I'm not sure about the micro guides. I don't know if it's just.
I do apologize, guys. I'm having some connectivity issues here. Do you have any idea why micro guides were developed?
No, to be honest, I don't know. For that reason, I don't see a reason for them. But I mean, there's probably a good reason why they did it. Not sure why. And you know what? I haven't even asked Jim why he actually decided to go with the bigger guides. I'm assuming that he wants it for castability because if anything, if you're going to have a sensitive rod, a robust rod, you want to, hit all the bases. Might as well have it good for castability. You have it, good bend in it. Have a great backbone. I know he has experimented over the years with several types of materials, and he's found his own weave when it comes to the carbon fiber and all this other stuff, just to help with the strength and durability of the rod. Because you want to fight the fish, not the rod. That's what they say. You want a rod that you can fight the fish and not the rod. Because, if you're fighting the rod, then your fish comes second. And most of the time, you're not going to bring that fish into the boat. Because, half of tournament success is finding and catching the fish. The other half is getting it to the boat. And unfortunately, last couple of tournaments, I had some winning fish that just didn't make it to the boat. And that's a difference between first place and seventh. So
that's all part of it.
Yeah.
You got to fish a clean tournament, and that's
yes, you do. And it's a lot harder than people think it is. It's when you have a 3.5 plus smallmouth that you hook right at the boat, and you're bringing up 4 feet to the boat, and you're hook them right under the boat, and they're already mad as heck. Good luck with that one. And you can't get to the net fast enough. You can try to boat flip them, but you know how it is. They're biting really light. You never know.
Boat flipping. I've lost fish boat flipping.
Yeah, I don't want to risk it, but you being a tournament fisherman, you have to make very, very quick split-second decisions. And I had the chance to boat flip him, but I had a partner in the boat who was great, and he's a great netter. Just unfortunately, the fish decided to launch like a rocket out of the water, just out of net's reach. And there are many times where we've had a fish come out of the water, and you have a good person netting. They got that net out, and that fish jumps out, spits the hook, but lands in the net. Now that's a good netter. And we've had that happen a couple times, which is great on both of our ends. But unfortunately, he was just out of reach. And he was a nice one. Would have done well for us.
I agree. Get that net underneath that bass, even if you got to go out of the boat.
It depends on the water temperature. Depends. There's some fish where I would have said, well, if we would have lost him, I would have probably jumped out of the boat for him. But there's no guarantee, and sometimes it's pretty cold out there. So not now. Nowadays, it might be refreshing.
Yeah, nowadays it would be refreshing. But
yeah.
I was just thinking there's nothing in the water that's going to eat you or poison you down up there in Illinois.
No, don't have to worry about that. No, I just have to worry about what's in the water, if anything. We have so many people, so much boat traffic. I was just going by the river today, just was driving over it, doing some errands, and it's just bumper to bumper boats all over the place. It's July 4th. What are you going to do? July 4th weekend, and everybody wants to get on the water. It's the best place to watch fireworks and whatnot. So don't blame them, but it's crazy out there. You got all that water chop, and you never know. But we don't have to worry about all the poisonous snakes or sharks or anything else like that, which is nice.
Or alligators, yeah.
Yeah, just other boaters. That's what I have to worry about.
Other boaters. That's even more dangerous than sharks or alligators.
Sometimes it can be. Sometimes it can be.
Particularly on July 4th when 70% of the people out there are drunk.
Well, hopefully not on the water. Although I have seen a big influx of DNR, sheriff, conservation. They've been out on the water quite a bit, so I'm glad they're out there. They're really policing and checking people, which is great. I like to see that because that's one thing. You don't need a license to drive a boat. So there are a lot of new boat owners out there since COVID. So we had record sales in boats. So you never know who's out there. And you just sit at a boat ramp for a little bit, you'll be entertained quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So Violet, it's about 30 after the hour. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
Well, obviously Lake County Water Sports has been doing very well for me. They've been they're a brand new skeeter dealer, out in Wakanda, Illinois. So they actually have the skeeter market up here in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. I'm currently running one of the Skeeter FXR 20 Limiteds, so nice. Available for demos. If anybody wants to take a look at it, anybody's interested in that particular boat or order one just like it, be more than happy to show the boat to you. It's a wonderful, wonderful company. Very, very nice high-end boat. If you really want to do tournament fishing right, and you really want to have a nice boat where you don't have to worry about anything, Skeeter's the way to go. It's an incredible, incredible boat. Obviously, they have a lot of models to choose from, and Lake County can now carry those, order them for you, customize them for you, whatever you need. And like I said, we have a few in the showroom. We can show you. And they also have recreational. They have something called a Solara, which is a recreational both for fishing, or if you have kids in the family, You could do you could tow the kids behind. You can go relax. There's a roof on, like an awning on it, but there's also small enough and versatile enough that you can go fishing with, like, trolling motor on the front or whatnot. So Skeeter's got a lot of variety, but it's nice to have them part of the Lake County Water Sports family. They've been very supportive and very helpful. And like I said, they'd run an amazing line of boats. And of course, Grant Rods, obviously Jim Grant's been wonderful. With everything that we do, the rods are just, like I said, second to none, really, to be honest. And, everybody that I know that actually, went ahead and got one and tried, because we know there's a ton of rod manufacturers out there. So many, way more than reels, almost as many as baits now. But you want to go with something that's going to last you. I mean, you spend money on a rod, even if it's $100. I mean, it's a lot of money. And, and you want something that's going to last you, something that's going to work, especially if you're going to do tournaments. And you want something that's just going to give you no hassle. And it really makes a difference. I didn't think it did for the longest time until I had the right rods put in my hand. Now I got, I don't know how many, 20 plus sitting in my boat right now. And each one has its own purpose. And you can't interchange them. Once you start using them, you'll understand why you have to use that rod for that purpose. And then you realize, oh, now I'm not losing fish. Or now I'm getting the bites. Oh, now I'm hooking them. There's a reason for it. And the rod is a big part of that puzzle. So, and the nice thing about Grant Rods is you don't have to guess. If you don't know what you need, you tell Jim, or you email him, or you call him, you say, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I don't know what the right rod is for it. What do you think? Well, Jim's got 40 plus years of experience in the industry. So he can tell you exactly what you need. I mean, I didn't even know the best jerkbait rod that I needed. And he just walked right over to the display, handed it to me, boom. I threw my first jerkbait, in the spring. And I was like, this rod is absolutely perfect. I don't have any issues with trying to work the jerkbait. I've had issues with working certain jerkbaits. Never again. Have issues with the bite and hooking the fish. Never again. I mean, he knows exactly what you need. So perfect.
So did you buy a glass rod?
I actually have, yes. So I have I did not know, actually, I did not buy a glass rod for crankbaits. I actually told him he has glass rods, but really when it comes down to
a glass rod for that?
I'm sorry, for cranking? Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. You saw it talking about for crankbaits?
Yeah.
Actually, so what's different?
For you use a glass rod?
No, he gave me a medium Cuda. Excuse me, I think it's a medium light Cuda series. I have to look. I think it's a medium or medium light Cuda series, 7 foot for cranking. And now it's got that great backbone, but it's got that give. So, with 10-pound fluoro on there, it's fantastic. I get the baits down to where I need to. And I exclusively use like PH Custom Lures, their balsa baits, which a lot of people don't use balsa up here. And I'm going to try to introduce that into the market a little bit better, or they're not talking, because I know I haven't seen a lot of them, but they're the best balsa bait maker in the country. And they make all sorts of different baits. They have a great wake bait that they have. They have some great flat-sided baits for early spring. They're now introducing a glide bait into the line and some jerk baits, or excuse me, not jerk baits, like a fluke style bait to the line, and using that lighter line allows you to get that bait a little deeper. And so I use that medium or medium light Cuda series. So I get the backbone, but I also have that 7 foot. So I can also, kind of throw those light balsa baits way out there. So it's kind of the perfect, but glass rod, people say you can use a glass rod. It's a little bit more sensitive, it has more give. I think that's more of a traditional thing, or some guys, they like the feel of it. I think the Cuda that Jim gave me is perfect for it. He's the one who picked it up for me. He says, I'm not a cranker. I don't do crankbaits. I really don't. I really need to, but my environment out here doesn't really allow me to do a lot of crankbait fishing, and we have a lot of grass out here, so it's hard. But PH Custom Lures they have a crankbait. I'll have to, maybe get you one, Jay. It's called the Sub P, and it goes just under the surface of water. It's not a wake bait. It goes about 1 foot to 2 feet under the surface, just enough for that grass that kind of grows almost to the top. And I was using it on the chain the other day, and I was catching those fish. It hits the grass tops just right, and anywhere on the lake where the grass is just about 1 foot or 2 from the top, and it just kind of skims, and it's got a really tight wobble, so it goes right through the little lonely pieces, the little stray pieces of grass, so it doesn't hook on them, but it calls the fish out of the grass, and I've caught a lot of fish that way. So so using that rod I love it. I absolutely love it, and it allows me to throw them out there quite a bit.
Well, that really sounds like something I could use down here where most of the water is less than 1.5 feet deep.
Right.
You know,
I'll get you some of those. I'll throw you some that way. I mean, they're great. They're called sub peas, and they stay right in the surface. The bill is almost straight down, but it's not a wake bait. It's not right at the surface. It's about a foot below. And the nice thing about these balsa baits is you can manipulate how far they go down and up. And if you just leave them alone, they just do a slight wobble to the surface. So you got action either way. And it's a different sound. It's a different profile. It's just different all the way around. They don't see a lot of those around here. So I think they're going to get a lot of traction if I throw them more. I just haven't had a chance to experiment with them. I'm more of a finesse fisherman. I like my light plastics, my small jigs. I do a lot of flipping. I do a lot
well,
of.
you know, one place I can see that really. Since this is a multi-species show, that would work really well on the Illinois River for white bass.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
used to use the man's baby 1- there, because you don't want something that goes deep because you're going to lose it. And there's a 1,000,001 snags in every mile of the Illinois River, particularly where the white bass live.
Is it mostly timber? Is that what you're snagging on?
It doesn't go down there. No, you're snagging on riprap, you're snagging on rebar, you're snagging on other people's lines.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
that happens in the Black River too. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's just the way it is. You know, the shore fishermen use 60-pound line, and when they break it, it's a major ordeal that can actually stop a 225 horse two-stroke. You know.
Right. Unfortunately, yeah.
So you know, yeah, that happens a lot, but that's just all part of it nowadays. You know.
Yeah.
When I was guiding about every week or so, I would have to take off my prop and take off my prop of my trolling motor too, to take all the line out of it before it starts breaking seals. You know.
Yeah, that's definitely one part of the maintenance that you have to do, especially in these waters. I mean, especially out here, we have the Chicagoland area. I mean, how many?
It's all part of it anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, do you have any other shout outs you'd like to do?
Missile's been phenomenal to me. They have a great product. They've been really good about supporting, and especially in these area. I've been trying to bring awareness to Missile. They're great plastics company. I mean, like I said, they're headed by a pro who uses the plastic. He understands, bass fishing, and they do every type of body of water. They got things for, reservoirs, inland lakes, river systems. And they'll work with you. They're really great bunch. They're a tight knit bunch of guys that do a great job, and they're growing. They're growing pretty fast, I think. And like I said, without any marketing, really, it's really word of mouth. And so they've been doing a great job. And they just have a cool product. They're just a cool bunch of guys. If you ever follow them on their Instagram or Facebook, they have some witty things and some fun stuff on there, as well as stuff about their products. So great company.
Well, thank you very much, Violet. I know you're a very, very busy person. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to our viewers here on the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, my name is Jay Angel. I am your podcaster. This is Violet Talley, tournament angler from Northeastern Illinois. Mm-hmm. And with that, I'm going to end the podcast. Violet, stick around for 2 minutes, please.